Let us take a look at the Cincinnati Reds preview for the 2020 season. Uh, Last year they finished 75 and 87, so only 12 games below 500, which was not bad for that team last year. They were fourth in the NL Central. Um, I think the goal for them this year is to be in contention for a wild card spot. They showed this year, this offseason, they're willing to spend money, and they're willing to spend decently sized money. Look at Castellanos, look at Mustakas, look at Akiyama. They're willing to spend money now, at least in that free agent class. Let's see if they can prolong into next season if things don't go right this year. But like I said, I think they could be a wild card hopeful. That would be my guess. But I think key additions they got in the offseason, like I said, they got Mustakas, who will most likely play second base. That'll have to be a thing to keep an eye out on this year. Um, they got Nick Castellanos from free agency. They stole him from Chicago, pretty much, because Chicago didn't want to pay him. Cubs. Uh, they also, which will help solidify probably their number 4 hole. Because Votto will probably still bat 3. So I could see Castellanos batting 4th. Give Votto some more pitches to see. Um, they also got Pedro Strop to help solidify that bullpen. Because other than, Michael Lorenzen, Raisel Iglesias, is there anybody else that's, like, good to great in that bullpen? So, you at least get a good reliever in Pedro Strop. And you also got Akiyama from the Japanese leagues, I believe, this offseason. Um, we'll have to see how well he transitions over to American baseball, because Japanese baseball and American baseball is completely different. So we'll see how well he does. Not a lot of people can do it, but the ones that do it are really good. Look at Ichiro and Hideki Matsui for prime examples. Um, Also, Wade Miley. They got Wade Miley in the offseason. That'll help solidify probably their number 4, number 5 spot in the rotation, I would assume. Because you got Castillo, Gray, Bauer, Desclafani, Miley. Unless they feel like Molly could start, and they can maybe throw Miley in the bullpen. I'd be surprised about that, but that could happen. Don't think it will, but could happen. Key losses that they took this in the offseason, which I don't think were big, were their middle infielders. Jose Peraza at second and Jose Iglesias at short. Iglesias is going to hurt him because his defense is magnificent at short. I don't know. He wasn't good with the bat at all, but nothing could get by him at short. And you lose Peraza, I believe, to free agency, which, if Mustakas can play second, that's no big deal for them. I think stuff to look out for storylines that could happen this year. See if Mustakas at second can work, because I don't think he's played necessarily a full season at second. I know he's played third. I believe most of his career he's played third. So going from that transition to second will be, I would assume, hard, but spring training will help him with that. Which, if it works, like I said, what a steal out of Cincinnati for getting Mustakas having to play second. I think also, will Nick Senzel play short at all this year? I would imagine he would, because in the outfield you have a jam already. You got Winker at left. As of right now, their depth charts: Winker at left, Senzel at center, Castellanos at right, with Akiyama backing up Senzel and Aquino backing up Castellanos. And they have Freddie Galvis at shortstop. So I would not be surprised at all if they bench Galvis and move Senzel to short and start Akiyama in center. Because Freddie Galvis isn't that good. And if Nick Senzel comes to personify what he's been projected to do, then I don't see what's the problem is by moving Senzel to short. He's a utility man from what I hear. He should, wasn't he drafted to play third? He can play anywhere on the field, so I don't know why they wouldn't at least try him at short, which they might try in spring training. But if they don't put him at short, I would be very surprised. Because you have a lot of guys that are getting paid a lot of money in the outfield, at least. Especially, well, you got Akiyama out there in center, who I would assume would want to start right away. So I don't understand why they wouldn't put Senzel at short to at least see how the chemistry would work. I think another thing to look for is Joey Votto. He wasn't himself last year. I mean, he's in. Granted, he's getting older now, but he's in the decline. But his decline's been so slow. Last year he got 261, 15 homers, 47 ribbies, a 357 on base, and 525 at bats, 137 hits. What's shocking is that 261 batting average for him. Usually he's around the 280, 290 mark, I would assume. Because it seems like no matter what, and he walks a lot, that's another thing. Where was I at? I'm just surprised that last year was such a decline for him, considering he's for the longest time, including before last year, he was the most productive part of that lineup, the most steady guy that you could always count on. And last year, you necessarily couldn't count on him last year. But I think players to look out for is, I think Akiyama, like I said earlier, see how well his transition is from the Japanese baseball league to the American baseball. See how well that transition does. See if he can keep up with everybody. Because like I said, it's a completely different thing. They're two completely different leagues. Just the play and everything's different. I think Jesse Winker's another guy you gotta look out for. He's a younger version of Joey Votto. Low strikeout numbers, high walks, doesn't strike out. He strikes out rarely, and he bats around 280, 290. I think Winker's more of an average, about a 270 guy, but he could become that Joey Votto type guy, bat 270 up at least, and be productive. Last year alone, he went 269. He had the same on base percentage as Votto with a 357. 16 homers, 38 ribbies, all in 338 at bats, which shows me he was either utilized less last year or he was hurt last year. And he's not old; he's only 26. He's still in his prime. So I would not be surprised if Winker takes an uptick this year in production and how well he plays on the field. I think the last two people you got to look out for starting pitchers: Sonny Gray and Trevor Bauer. Sonny Gray is starting to look like himself from his Oakland days. 2013, 2014, when he was undoubtedly the ace on that team, on that playoff ace team. He went to New York and just didn't have it. And then I believe he got traded to the Reds, where we signed. Either way, he's on the Reds team. And he's been starting to find his form of those old A's teams, which if the Reds can get A's Gray, that's perfectly fine by them. That's their number 2 guy, because Castillo's that's another guy. If Castillo can stay where he was last year or improve, he's definitely the number 1 on that team. But we'll have to see. I think Gray will have to be a guy to look out for, because last year he improved. He looked really good last year. Let's see if he can go another step forward, and do really well. And I think the last guy is Trevor Bauer. He's on his last year of his contract. He, if the Reds don't, I think if the Reds don't hit 500 or 2 or 3 games within the wild card, I don't see them holding on to Trevor Bauer unless he wants to stay in Cincinnati. Which, if he does, Cincinnati would love to keep him. He's a nice starting pitcher. But I don't know if he wants to stay in Cincinnati. I would imagine he would, but I don't know. And like I said at the beginning, I think my guess for where the Reds will place, I could see third in the division, in front of the Cubs. I could see that because not Cincinnati. Chicago has fallen back in the offseason. They got rid of a lot. They got rid of people. I did a video on them yesterday, and they drew back a lot because they didn't want to pay money to some of these guys like Castellanos and Stroke. Where's my point? Yeah, I think they could finish third. Depending on how Chicago does, maybe fourth. But that NL Central is either I could see 4 out of the 5 teams going 500 in that division. I could see St. Louis, Milwaukee, Chicago, Cincinnati. I don't see Pittsburgh going 500. Because everybody else in that division is getting better, except the Cubs, and Pittsburgh they're getting worse because they got rid of Starling Marte. They traded him. But I could see Cincinnati as either the number 3 team in the Central, or maybe a wild card hopeful. That'd be the only way into the playoffs is the wild card. But it's just how the bounce goes really in the National League. But I hope they make it. I hope they're competitive. That's all I hope for out of Cincinnati, and I feel like that's what most of their fans hope for. But yeah, if you guys liked the video, press the like button, subscribe down below. That'd be greatly appreciated. Share this video with all your friends and buddies, and I will see you guys in the next video.